Show me your ugly wife that matches you. A beautiful classmate from high school used to call me a nerd and harassed me. She still messes with me, calling me ugly. I was honestly irritated because she insulted my precious girlfriend. Maybe it's time I made her understood. While I was thinking this, someone tapped my shoulder. Sorry, kept you waiting. I turned around to see my beloved wife. Seeing her, the classmate's face changed color. It was the moment that downfall which she had only herself to blame began. My name is Michael Johnson. I own a restaurant and a cafe. This cafe has been my dream since way back. It's small, but I'm meticulous about every single ingredient in our dishes. That's our selling point, and now we're so popular we're featured in magazines. I'm especially particular about the coffee beans. I'm so particular about it that I personally source the beans from their origin, which amazes my acquaintances but earns respect from fellow professionals. I've also learned latte art, and having recently won a competition, I think I'm quite skilled. Michael, how's the cafe going? Smoothly. How about you? I'm doing well too. Can I visit your place sometime? Of course. I'm truly looking forward to your visit. Thank you. The reason I can run this shop is because of the support of my wife, Emily. Despite her busy job, Emily takes care of the household. Oh, that's a beautiful flower. Yes. Plants soothe feelings, and this one fits the ambience of our home, so I couldn't resist buying it. But it's nice, right? Yeah, I think it's really great. Our home is well maintained thanks to her. Emily's taste is exceptional, and if she posts on social media, it immediately goes viral. Not just our home, but I also entrusted her with the interior and exterior design of my cafe. Thanks to Emily's sense, everything has become refined. I lack aesthetic sense, so her advice was invaluable. You really has great taste. Thank you. Well, it comes with the job. I can never thank you enough. I feel the same way. However, Emily, who seems perfect, has one fatal weakness. It's cooking. Michael, the toast is ready. Ah, thanks. Let's add some avocado. And there's homemade consommé soup too. Wow, amazing. I could never do that. I'd end up with bad-shaped avocados and terrible soup. Emily lacks any talent for cooking. She still can only make toast and a cheese and cracker plate. She used to try for my sake in the past. Whoa, there's a lot of smoke. I thought fried eggs would be easy. Fried eggs, honey. You don't cook them whole, and judging by the smoke, you didn't use oil, did you? Trying to make fried eggs, she put them in a pan without cracking and nearly caused a fire with the intense heat. What was that loud noise? Sorry, I was trying to make boiled eggs. Did you put them in the microwave as is? Yeah, indeed. You can make boiled eggs in a microwave, but they explode if you put them in whole. In the time she exploded eggs trying to boil them by microwave. Darling, what happened this time? This. Sorry. What is this black liquid? It was supposed to be chicken noodle soup. When she tried to make chicken noodle soup, it turned into a black liquid. I did what I could to fix things, but most were beyond saving. I really am terrible at cooking. She had given up on her culinary talents. Darling, you're amazing. You can make such stylish and healthy dishes. Thanks. But honey, you're the amazing one. Even if you can cook, everything else you do is perfect. Our home is beautiful because of you. I don't have the aesthetic sense to create such a wonderful interior like this. Even if she can cook, I can make delicious and healthy meals. Even if I lack sense, Emily beautifies our home. In this way, we support each other and spend peaceful days together. Darling, there was a letter for you. Oh, really? Thanks. One day, I received an invitation to a high school reunion. Wow, really? The reunion was organized by people from high school, and the organizer was Ashley Miller, a girl I always had trouble with. I hate that she often said me, "Hey, can the nerd leave? You're ruining the vibe." Ashley Miller, a beauty pageant winner, always looked down on others. I had no good impression of her and tried to avoid her as much as possible. Even though I became somewhat sociable as an adult, in high school, I was an even more unpolished male student, often laughed at and called a nerd. Stuck with the nerd again. That's the worst. Stay away from me. I don't like you either. The nerd talking back. That's really funny, lol. Moreover, by some twist of fate, We were in the same class for 3 years with seats near each other, so I was constantly laughed at. Even when I tried to keep my distance, she would still bother me, and it was honestly tough. You're the one who's always coming over. Just keep yourself from Michael. That's it, Ashley. Girls should stick with other girls. My friends protected me, and that's how I managed to attend school for 3 years. Especially my best friend, Chris Wilson, didn't care about the glares from her followers and always spoke up against Ashley. What's wrong? You seem troubled. Oh, just thinking about the high school reunion. Honestly, I didn't want to go to a reunion organized by Ashley and her clique. But I was on good terms with almost everyone else, especially wanting to catch up with Chris after a long time. If you're unsure, why not attend? It's not like you have to talk to the organizers just because you go to the reunion. With Emily's encouragement, I decided to attend after much thought and contacted them. I'll pick you up in the car after the reunion, so feel free to have a lot of drinks, Emily said with a smile, and I smiled back at her. Thanks. Then, I'll go and have fun. Jess, enjoy yourself. Grateful for her encouragement, I looked forward to the day of the reunion. Hey, Michael. Over here, Michael. Long time no see, guys. On the day, as I approached the venue restaurant, a few of the guys I was close with in high school came up to talk. Chris was among them, of course. It's really been a long time, Michael. You've been abroad, so we hardly got to see each other. Yeah. Michael, you've become quite stylish. Oh, I thought the same. Johnson, who had no interest in fashion, has become so stylish. We have both changed, but as soon as we started talking, it felt like we were back in our high school days. I forgot the gloominess caused by the organizers and was happy to reconnect with old friends. At that moment, I was truly glad I attended, just as Emily had encouraged me to. Everyone, long time no see. Here comes the beauty pageant winner, Ashley Miller. Then, the organizer Ashley Miller appeared. Her loud voice and frivolous words drew everyone's attention in the venue. Still wearing flashy makeup and clothes, she seemed almost garishly overdone. Long time no see, Ashley. As gorgeous as ever. Around her, several classmates in similar attire gathered. It's like a cabaret club lady who hasn't made it big in her entourage. Chris, that's rude to cabaret club ladies. Right. It's more like a rafflesia and the insects that are attracted to it. You always had extreme metaphor. Our conversation made the other friends chuckle quietly. Ashley glanced over at us. As usual, the nerds are dull and bring down the mood. She began to look down on us. I bet you're still not attractive at all. Your wives or girlfriends must be also unattractive, if you even have any. Probably just skulking in some corner of society. Exactly. Probably the typical office outcast, right? Or an unemployed shut-in. Juck, let's stay away. They were saying whatever they wanted. I glanced at Chris, frowning. Not attractive, huh? From what standpoint? You should look at your own appearance before talking about others. We're not even interested in you guys. Chris muttered back in a voice too low for them to hear. Unlike in high school, where he retorted to everything and got glares from girls, Chris seemed to have grown up and was acting more like an adult. After Ashley and her group had their fill of bad-mouthing us, they found another target and left. Okay, they go away. Just gossiping as usual, never changes. Really, all about appearances. Indeed, Ashley still maintained her glamorous beauty, becoming even more enchanting with age. Look at my fabulous life I post on SNS. Her loud conversation about her boastful life on SNS was impossible to ignore. She mentioned being an influencer, getting corporate gigs. Actually, I'm having multiple patrons supporting my lifestyle. With Ashley's beauty, that's expected. Yeah. Thanks to that, I don't have to work hard like ordinary people to make a living. She was talking like that. Honestly, for us who work hard and earn our own living, it didn't seem like anything to boast about. It's like a story from another world. Really, it's a different world. We don't want to be involved with that. True. Oh, by the way, I finally found what Chris mentioned the other day. Hey, stop it. It's embarrassing to know someone who buys that stuff. We were more interested in our own topics, not paying much attention to them. Here's my fiancé. Wow, he's handsome. Like a celebrity. Has to be, to match up with me. Let's see your partner. After Ashley's partner, it's a bit embarrassing. Huh? Oh, that's nice. Thanks. Weren't you saying you got a boyfriend recently? Yeah. Really? I want to see. Show us. Ashley and her group seem to be enjoying showing off photos of their boyfriends and spouses. Hey, let's call our husbands over. Why not? I just messaged my guy. He said he'd come. Well, Ashley's handsome fiancé is coming. Awesome. It seemed Ashley's fiancé was also coming to the reunion. By the way, do you guys have partners? Hearing this kind of talk, our conversation gradually shifted in that direction. I don't have anyone yet, but Michael, you're married, right? Yeah. I didn't know that. Michael's married. Yeah, we're both busy with work, so we weren't interested in a big wedding. We just registered our marriage and had a small gathering with close family. That's how it was. And now that I look, you're wearing a ring. True, congratulations for now. Haha, thanks. My friends were surprised to hear about my marriage. Chris knew since we had kept in touch after high school, but I hadn't had the chance to tell the others due to our busy lives. Wow, even a nerd gets married, huh? Hearing our conversation, Ashley and her group approached us. Marrying such a nerd, what kind of woman is she? Terrible taste in women. She must be so unfashionable to end up with a nerd like that. Unaware of our grimaces, Ashley and her group speculated about my wife and got excited. Definitely ugly. The wife matching him must be ugly for sure. Ahaha. As Ashley laughed loudly, everyone looked uncomfortable. I was about to shout, upset at her insulting my kind and beloved wife. Ashley, you seem to be having fun. Oh, David. Amidst this tense atmosphere, Ashley's much-talked-about fiancé arrived. This is my fiancé, David Thompson. He's a handsome entrepreneur, Ashley said, holding to her fiancé's arm. Dressed in a suit, he indeed looked handsome and wore what seemed to be expensive attire. That face, I remember it. As everyone focused, I recognized his face. Ah, could it be Mr. Johnson? I remember now. It's Mr. Thompson. It was Thompson, the fiancé, who recognized me first. Mr. Johnson, it's great to see you again. He approached me with a respectful bow. The same here. Thank you for everything, Mr. Thompson. I stood up and greeted him as well. Who would have thought I'd see Mr. Johnson here? That's right, you're the same age as her. Meeting like this must be destiny. Yes, indeed. The world is surprisingly small. Hey, wait. You know him? This nerd? Ashley asked Thompson, looking puzzled as we spoke amiably. Thompson's smile turned to anger at the word nerd. What's that way of speaking? What do you mean? It's true. Just a nerd whispering in the corner. Don't joke. How dare you insult Mr. Johnson like that? Why do you always speak down to people? What? Just answer my question. This man is the landlord of my store. He owns several properties around here. Mr. Thompson, angered by her disrespect towards me, revealed my identity. In reality, my family was wealthy, and I myself owned several real estate properties. Owning my own stores was a dream come true, but managing all of them was challenging. So, I decided to lease them out as tenancies. Mr. Thompson was one of the lessees, running a restaurant. He's polite, earnest, and someone I trust deeply, and I've heard his business is doing well. No way. There's no way such a nerd could be rich. Despite Mr. Thompson's explanation, Ashley refused to believe it. You really don't believe anything that doesn't suit you. I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Thompson sighed and apologized to me, even though it wasn't his fault. His attitude was commendable. What do we do? It kind of seems true, doesn't it? Ashley's friends were whispering among themselves, glancing over at us. Even if he owns real estate, he's still an ugly nerd, right? His wife must be ugly too. Do you have any photos? Show us your ugly wife that matches you. Hey, stop it. Come on, show us your ugly wife that matches you. Mr. Thompson tried to stop Ashley, but she was out of control. Honestly, I didn't want to introduce my girlfriend to such a noisy woman. However, this might be the perfect opportunity to prove Ashley wrong. While I was thinking this, a woman approached me. Sorry, kept you waiting. The one who tapped me was my wife, Emily. Honey, you came. Yes, I arrived early and thought about waiting outside. Despite wearing sunglasses and a hat, her slender figure was unmistakably striking. "Hey, let me see your face." Frustrated by our casual conversation, Ashley snatched Emily's hat and sunglasses. "What? No way. Isn't that the model? The popular model Emily Blake?" As Emily's face was revealed, cheers erupted from those around. Yes, Emily was the popular model Emily Blake. A regular on TV, she was beloved for her unpretentious personality, healthy style, and good taste, making her a frequent guest on TV shows. "This is my wife, Emily. Nice to meet you. I'm Emily Johnson, modeling under the stage name Emily Blake." We smiled at Ashley. "It's the real Emily Blake." "Well, I'm a fan. Can I get an autograph? She's really beautiful." While everyone cheered for Emily's appearance, Ashley stood dumbfounded, speechless. "Ashley, long time no see. Remember me?" Emily, still smiling, spoke to Ashley. "Huh?" Ashley frowned at Emily's question. Her expression showed she didn't understand what was being said. "My name I use for daily life is Brown. Emily Brown." "Brown? Forgotten? The classmate you bullied into transferring schools?" "No way." Ashley's face grew paler as she remembered Emily's words. It seemed she had recalled the past. Watching her, I remembered what Emily had told me before. "You know, I was in the same middle school as Ashley." Emily and Ashley had been in the same middle school. But in the 7th grade, Ashley started to bully Emily. My things would go missing all the time. So, I started taking everything home daily, never letting my belongings out of my sight. She even spread baseless rumors about my parents doing bad things and calling us poor. That's terrible. She was mean even in middle school. Yes, that's right. And back then, I looked totally different. At that time, Emily was still in her growing phase, shorter and fuller, with a face troubled by acne. Additionally, Emily was a shy and quiet girl, making her an easy target for Ashley's relentless mockery. Unable to bear the daily torment of being called ugly and laughed at, Emily decided to transfer schools after consulting with her parents, moving to a different school before she started the 8th grade of middle school. Even after Emily transferred to other school, Ashley continued her bullying, targeting one student after another. Probably, she felt a sense of superiority by belittling those she perceived as below her. Being targeted by her must have been tough. After that, Ashley, surrounded by her entourage, had a lot of casual relationships during her school days. Her unwarranted confidence only made her more arrogant over time. "I worked hard after that. It didn't go well at first, but I wanted to prove you wrong, so I kept trying." Emily said this to the now silent Ashley, but she quickly corrected herself. That was a mistake. She negated her own statement. "You're not worth having connection with me." So I realized I didn't have to prove what you said back then was wrong. Personality shows in appearance. Instead of her previous pleasant smile, Emily now gave Ashley a look of disdain. "What do you mean?" "Just what I said. It's obvious you're trying to cover up your skin issues with makeup." Emily stated this clearly to Ashley, who tried to retort. "You might be spending a lot of money, but your unhealthy lifestyle is showing on your body. Shapewear can hide everything, you know." "Chiar, you seem to be flaunting a glamorous life on SNS, but it's all superficial. There's no depth to it." Emily's critiques came one after another, and since they were all true, the others around began to laugh. That's why she is a popular model. Absolutely spot on. For probably the first time in her life, Ashley, faced with such disdain, turned bright red with anger. "Don't mess with me. Stop it." Seeing Ashley lunge at Emily, I quickly stepped in between them to protect Emily. Right then, the sound of a camera shutter clicked. Turning around, I saw Chris with his camera, having captured Ashley's furious expression. "What are you taking pictures of? Calm down." As I held Ashley back with Mr. Thompson's help, Chris continued to take photographs of her. "I'm a professional photographer, after all. I got a perfect shot." Chris had pursued his dream after college, becoming a global photographer. Now, his photo books were selling out everywhere, making him quite successful. "If you keep this up, I'll post these photos on SNS. The true face of a self-proclaimed beautiful celebrity. My photos will definitely attract attention. So what? I don't care. Let Emily and the real estate guy get carried away and fail miserably." Intimidated by Chris's threat, Ashley hurled a parting shot and left. Everyone, I'm sorry for the disturbance. Mr. Thompson apologized with a troubled look for Ashley's behavior. It was clear that he did not go with her, and I clearly imagined what might become of the two in the future. The reunion ended abruptly, partly because of the awkward atmosphere and also to avoid any more trouble now that the famous Emily Blake was recognized. Did I go too far? Emily pondered regretfully on the way home. Not at all. Honestly, it was refreshing. Really. But the reunion ended because of it. It's fine. I already exchanged contacts with those who were close with. We decided to have a mini reunion at Mr. Thompson's restaurant. Then that's good. Yeah, and I was angry too when you were insulted. Thanks for standing up for both of us. You're welcome. After getting out of the car, we walked home. Looking at Emily smiling beside me, I reminisced about how we met. Please welcome Emily Brown, who's joining our class today. Hi, nice to meet you. Emily transferred to my middle school when we were in the 8th grade. I'm Michael Johnson. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. You've not got your textbooks yet. We can share mine. Thank you. By chance, we sat next to each other, and I shared my textbooks with her during class. That was the start of us talking more and more. Eventually, we became good friends and exchanged contacts. Back then, that was all, and we gradually lost touch. Hello. Thanks. Our reunion happened when I opened my cafe. Struggling with few customers in my sparsely decorated cafe, I was deep in thought. In my cafe, which I had designed with extreme simplicity, I was troubled by the lack of customers. Excuse me, are you Michael Johnson? Oh, Emily. It was during this time that Emily, as a customer, came into my life again. Happy with this unexpected reunion, we shared various stories with each other. By then, Emily had already started working as a model. Though she had grown taller, she was not like a celebrity, and her skin issues were severe. She began to visit the cafe regularly. This might not be my bussiness, but you don't have many customers, do you? Well, actually, concerned about the always empty cafe, I shared everything with Emily, not hiding anything. Michael, what's up? I might be able to help a little. Following her advice, I renovated the cafe, and gradually customers started coming in. In turn, I became concerned about Emily's eating habits and began to take care of her. Knowing that she often ate fast food or frozen food, I started offering her menus rich in vegetables and helped improve her diet. Hey, Michael, I heard this kind of meal is good for you. Yeah, I can make this too. Let's try it. Together, we researched meals beneficial for beauty and health. Thanks to her efforts and the changes in her diet, Emily transformed much more beautifully. As a result, her modeling work increased, and now she's a popular model. By positively influencing each other, we both found success in our respective fields. Wow, Emily, you also like this cat character? Yeah, I do. We found we had a lot in common and shared similar interests. When we talked about our pasts, we realized we had both been harassed by the same person, which deepened our connection. Our relationship grew stronger, and after a few years of dating, I asked her to marry me. We still give each other advice and live happily together. I believe meeting you again that day was destiny. Really, what brought that on all of a sudden? Emily smiled happily at my words, feeling the same way as I did. Though it was a strange connection, being harassed by the same person, I treasured this relationship. Holding her warm hand, I felt strongly about this. Later, Ashley's social media blew up. Chris didn't post the photo, but the story about the reunion spread among other classmates. After all, Ashley had insulted a popular model. It was no surprise things turned out this way for her. Ashley, with her enraged expression, became an internet meme, losing her so-called celebrity status. At the mini reunion in Mr. Thompson's restaurant, we learned more. I broke up with Ashley. She was upset, but there were things that bothered me, and this was a good opportunity. That must have been tough for you, Mr. Thompson. Oh, it's nothing compared to what you two went through. Ashley showed no signs of remorse, continuing to blame Emily and me. What popular model? What real estate mogul? Just a nerd and an ugly duckling getting above their station. It's all their fault, not mine. Mr. Thompson finally had enough of Ashley. I didn't post the photo, but I did talk about the reunion in a recent interview," Chris said with a mischievous smile. His photos, especially popular among the wealthy, spread what happened in the reunion. Ashley's patrons abandoned her, and she tearfully returned to her parents' home. Having never worked, it was unclear what she planned to do next. I could only hope her parents would re-educate her. "Well, she's no longer our concern." "Exactly. Let's not talk about her. Tell me more about your wife." Right. Okay, I got it. Emily, my wife, became a bit of a topic when Ashley's social media blew up. She revealed that she had been in middle school with Ashley, and Ashley went to same high school with me. While she hadn't shared the details of being harassed, other classmates revealed it, garnering sympathy for Emily. Now, her past challenges only added to her popularity. A movie about Emily's life would be great. One director expressed interest in her story, leading to a film about Emily's journey to becoming a popular model, Emily Blake, starring herself. The movie was a huge hit, making Emily a well-known figure of the time. Meanwhile, my cafe was also doing well. After the movie revealed my existence, I sometimes got asked by Emily's fans, "Are you her husband?" I can't disclose personal information. I often dodge such questions, although it's obvious among avid fans that I'm her husband. Emily asked for privacy on social media, and we've been warmly supported. Of course, my passion for coffee has its own staunch fan base, making my days fulfilling. "You're back, honey." "I'm back. Phew, I'm tired. I'll have dinner ready in a moment." "Thanks, looking forward to it." After the cafe closes, my wife comes in. On days when Emily finishes work late, she comes to the cafe for a meal after closing. I'd prepare a vitamin-rich meal for her. Your cooking is delicious, darling. Better than any meal in other restaurant." "Ahaha, thanks." Her smiling face while eating was priceless. While I may never forgive Ashley, I'm grateful that the incident brought Emily and me closer. Maybe the past wasn't all bad, considering how it led to our present. Thinking this, I smiled back at Emily, content in our shared happiness. "I need help here." The executive chef collapsed. At a resort known for its cuisine, a commotion ensued. I, overhearing this nearby, couldn't help but be concerned and headed towards the kitchen. The ambulance arrived quickly, and we were relieved to learn that the executive chef was conscious. However, another problem arose. It seems that the sous chef was also not around. With both head chefs unavailable, the restaurant is concerned that their dinner service will surely be hampered. We should apologize to the guests. "Oh, that's right." The manager approached me. "Please, we need your help." Me? Really? I was taken aback by the sudden request. Despite my fear, I couldn't just ignore someone in need. I made up my mind and nodded in agreement. Little did I know then, after having a beautiful guest taste my cooking, she would come up to me saying she wanted to talk, and that we would end up spending the night together. My name is Ethan Walsh. I was on a solo trip to a resort inn, famous for its food. Working in a hotel myself, staying at accommodation facilities always felt more exciting than any other travel destination. And the surreal scenery and experiences were enough to make me forget my troubles. Unconsciously, I sighed, took a photo of the charming resort's exterior, and passed through the Norrin curtain. A male receptionist smiled in greeting. "Welcome." "Hello. I have a reservation under the name of Ethan Walsh." "Mr. Walsh, we've been expecting you." While I was checking in, a tall woman approached me from behind. "Ethan, it's been a while. I've been waiting for you." "Taylor, long time no see. You look well." She was a vivacious woman with striking features. She was the manager and a former colleague from my workplace. She had worked at the hotel as part of her training to take over this resort from her parents. Before she left, she had told me to visit sometime, and I took her up on that offer. I'm finally getting the hang of running things as the manager, but it's harder than I thought, not just cooking but also managing the business. How about you, Ethan? "Yeah, still keeping busy as usual." "That's good to hear. Then you must relax today. I'm confident in our cuisine. I'm sure you'll be satisfied." "Thanks. I'm looking forward to it. I've prepared a special room for you." I wonder if I managed to smile properly. Was I worrying my old colleague? As I walked behind her, I pondered these thoughts. Eventually, I was led to a room with a view of the garden, filled with the pleasant scent of grass. Just that alone was soothing. I thought about getting a massage until dinner time when the far end of the hallway became noisy. Taylor. You're here. What's the matter? What all the commotion? I need help here. The executive or chef, Mr. Woodhill, has collapsed. What? Ethan, I'm sorry, excuse me. Okay. Is everything going to be okay? I couldn't help but be concerned and headed towards the kitchen. Mr. Woodhill. Hand in there. Ma'am. I'm okay. You're not okay. Is the ambulance on the way? It's been called. They said about 10 minutes. Just as the staff said, the ambulance arrived shortly. It seemed to be nothing serious since he was conscious, but another problem had arisen at the resort. Ma'am, about the dinner service and beyond. Yes. With both head chefs unavailable, the restaurant is concerned that their dinner service will surely be hampered. Today, a travel agency was planning to tour our resort for a stay. If this falls through, it could be the end for us. I understand. But there's nothing we can do. We'll have to apologize to the guests. Oh, that's right. Taylor approached me. She caught me eavesdropping. It was a bit awkward, but I quickly stepped aside. However, Taylor stopped in front of me. Ethan, please, I need your help. Me? Really? With the head chef down and no sous chef today, but I thought, if it's Ethan. The reason Taylor thought of me was because I, too, am a cook. But it's a different story to serve guests at someone else's resort. But am I really the right person for this? Don't worry, we'll have other chefs to support you. You're the only one here with the skills comparable to the head chef. But actually, Ethan, please. I'll take full responsibility. I've always been indebted to Taylor. If she's in trouble, I can't just stand by. All right, I'll do my best to match the head chef's standards. Taylor, feel free to taste and give feedback as much as you want. Oh, thank you. Then I was taken to the kitchen and introduced to the other chefs as a cook trusted by the manager. With the resort fully booked for the day, the kitchen was even busier than usual. I was initially bewildered, but I'm a professional. Once I checked the prepared soup stock and recipes, I got the hang of it. I adjusted the seasoning and texture according to the guests, softening flavors and textures for the elderly, and cutting vegetables and meat into smaller pieces for children. Then, with the help of the team, I kept cooking dish after dish. Dinner time was from 5 to 7 p.m. Including preparations, I spent about 5 frantic hours in the kitchen, and before I knew it, it was 8 p.m. We made it through somehow. Exhausted, I slumped down in the break room next to the kitchen. This must be what they mean by too tired to lift a finger. Working in a resort's kitchen is tough, I thought, sipping the tea Taylor had made for me. But there was a sense of fulfillment in revisiting this old sensation. Thank you so much. I'm sorry to have taken up your time off. Of course, your state night is on the house. No, that's too much. Still, your skills are impressive. You managed to handle new ingredients so well. The dishes tonight might have been even better than usual. Could you teach our chefs some time? I'm not that great. Thanks to you, the travel agency representatives were pleased. They said they'd include our resort in their official tours. This is all thanks to you, Ethan. I really appreciate it. Excuse me for interrupting your conversation. A server entered the break room and noticed me. Excuse me, one of the guests has requested to see the head chef. Me. Was the food not to their liking, or did they realize it wasn't the head chef's cooking? However, the staff didn't seem upset. Realizing I wasn't about to be scolded, I relaxed and headed to the private dining room. Seated at the table I was called to was a beautiful woman, a refined-looking woman, seemingly around my age, lit up with wide eyes upon seeing me. Was it your cooking? Yes. It was so delicious. I was moved. I just had to express my feelings and gratitude. I'm sorry for calling you out so suddenly. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. Oh, Savannah. Taylor called out to the guest from behind. Savannah. Her beauty lived up to her name. Good evening, Taylor. Good evening. I'm glad you could come. Ethan. This young lady is the sister of a friend of mine. I'm Savannah Williams. Nice to meet you. I'm Ethan Walsh. Savannah. Ethan here isn't the head chef. He's a former colleague from my previous job. Does that mean you work at Cherry Blossom Hotel? Yes, he's the sous chef there. Impressive for someone so young, right? Indeed. I'm the sous chef at a one-star restaurant. But suddenly, Miss Williams's expression brightened. Her hands clasped together as her cheeks flushed. Wonderful. Cherry Blossom Hotel is famous for guests staying specifically for the restaurant, right? I'm actually a cook myself. I've been in a slump, unsure about the flavors I'm seeking. But then, standing up, she took my hand. But after tasting your cooking, I'm convinced that this is the path I should follow. Really? That much? Yes. Until now, my cooking has been by the book, very rigid. I didn't know how to express originality. Your cooking was different from anything I've experienced before. I know it's a lot to ask, but could you please be my mentor? I have so much I want to learn from you. Being praised like that, it's impossible not to feel happy. Since she's an acquaintance of Taylor's, well, it's fine. Besides, I want to hear her story. I want to listen to her experiences and learn for myself. Thank you. I'd love to hear more about your experiences, Ms. Williams. I'm so glad to hear that. Afterward, Ms. Williams and I, having secured a private room, had a lively discussion about cooking. She said she was still training, but from our conversation, her knowledge was impeccable, and she had solid experience. I thought she was more than ready to work professionally, but as I heard earlier, she seemed to be struggling to find her direction. I'd be happy if I could help alleviate her worries even a little. As we talked over drinks, the conversation flowed effortlessly, and before I knew it, it was morning. I somehow ended up back in my room without remembering how I got there. I drank so much that I couldn't recall. No, my head is too painful to even try to remember. When was the last time I had a hangover like this? Lying on the bed, presumably prepared by the chambermaid, I stared blankly at the ceiling. Last night, let's see, I got along well with Miss Williams. We talked about cooking, and then… No, I can't remember. I noticed a coffee pot on the desk and decided to have some coffee to clear my head. Dragging my heavy head and body, I made it to the desk and saw a note. I didn't remember placing it there. Picking it up, it was written in a woman's handwriting. Thank you. I won't forget last night. It was wonderful. Looking forward to seeing you again. Savannah Williams. What? My drowsiness and drunkenness vanished, and I looked at the note again. The content remained the same. This was a note left by Miss Williams. But wait, what? What does this note mean? I looked down at myself and checked the bed, but nothing seemed amiss. But what does this note mean? Did I do something wrong? If I had crossed a line, even if it was due to alcohol, I couldn't just brush it off. I needed to apologize properly. I quickly got dressed and headed to the lobby. Taylor was there at the reception. Taylor. Oh, Ethan. Good morning. Good morning. Where's Miss Williams' room? Savannah. She left early this morning. What? Is something wrong? I just have something I need to tell her. I'll contact her for you. I'll ask her to get in touch with you. Thank you. I felt like I was barely alive. What had I done to such a beautiful woman? What if she had a boyfriend or a husband? I spent the day troubled and then headed home. The next day, back at work, a different problem awaited me. Ethan, what's with this broth? Is something wrong with it? Don't you see? It's completely different from the standard. Back at the hotel kitchen, Chef Anderson was yelling at me. After the former executive chef left to start his own place, Chef Anderson, from one of our partner hotels, joined us and had been giving me a hard time. I told Taylor everything was going well, but that was a lie. Ever since he arrived, I've felt marginalized. Originally, I was highly regarded and trusted by the former chef and the hotel owner. I think it was because of my personality. I had always enjoyed cooking as a hobby before I turned professional, and after becoming a chef, my passion exceeded just a hobby. With the network of people I built and the financial freedom I gained, my culinary research flourished. The more my world expanded, the more ideas I had, and my growing skills contributed to menu development. My menus were often chosen, and my transition from a hobbyist to a dedicated professional was praised for elevating the hotel's culinary quality. As a result, I was entrusted with the role of sous chef at a young age. I had thought about continuing as a chef and eventually going independent, but everything changed when the chef position changed hands. Chef Anderson, who was once a sous chef like me, joined our hotel full of determination. He aimed to make a mark in a top-tier hotel but seemed to find my presence bothersome. Perhaps my ability to continuously create new menus and my recognized skills irked him. He harassed me every chance he got. "You don't have the basics down. Make it like I do," he'd complain, forcing me to mimic his subpar soups or removing me from preparing meals for VIP guests, which I used to handle. His harassment escalated over time. The peace I found at the resort quickly soured. I was only trying to work hard for the hotel and myself. Why should I be oppressed by someone who was supposed to guide me? "What's with that look?" Chef Anderson noticed. Probably my displeasure showed after being praised so much by Ms. Williams. He slammed his fist on the table. "If you don't like it, it's the same as not having motivation. Just quit already." That day, maybe he was particularly irritable. He ordered me to do only dishwashing. I was becoming indifferent. Fed up with his tyranny, I had already been contemplating resignation. The resignation letter was ready. Maybe I should quit. I've lost my motivation to keep working here. I spent the morning not allowed to touch the ingredients and slumped in the break room when the owner came in. "Ethan, can I have a word?" "Yes." Chef Anderson's harassment only occurred in the kitchen. So the owner didn't know his true nature. Chef Anderson behaved well towards the owner and other areas. I couldn't bring myself to speak up about his actions. Hotel operation requires everyone's cooperation, meaning trust is essential. If the issues in the kitchen were to come to light, it might spread discord throughout the hotel. If I just endured it, the hotel could operate smoothly without any issues. Today, my daughter came to visit. The owner's daughter. Yes, she's aspiring to be a chef at a hotel like this. Would you mind teaching her a bit for her studies? Of course, I'd be happy to help if I can. When I was led to the owner's office, a familiar face was there. "Miss Williams." "Oh, Ethan." The person I wanted to see, or more accurately, the person with whom I needed to clarify what happened that night, was there. Savannah Williams was standing right there. "So, you're the owner's daughter?" "Yes." "Oh, did I not mention that?" "Wait, do you two know each other?" the owner asked. "Yes, we met at the resort the other day, right?" Her suggestive tone made my heart skip a beat. All I could manage was a nod. "Excuse me. Chef Anderson, you've come too." The owner greeted him as he entered the room. He must have been called by the owner. "Nice to meet you. I'm the head chef, Anderson. I'm Savannah Williams. Pleased to meet you. I hear you've trained at a 3-star restaurant in France." "Yes, but only for a short time." She had downplayed her skills, saying she was only a novice and had sought advice from me, but she might be more experienced than I am. "Would you mind sharing some of your experiences?" "Yes, and I'd love to hear more about your work too, Chef Anderson." When Chef Anderson sat across from Ms. Williams, he started talking fluently, a stark contrast to the unpleasantness he showed me. He was polite and had a pleasant smile. The owner and I also joined a conversation, mainly discussing culinary topics. Being in the presence of others, I couldn't ask about that night. I was distracted and couldn't look directly at Miss Williams. "Ethan." "Ethan." "Huh? Oh, yes." Startled, I jumped when Miss Williams called my name. "I was asking about your menu. Are you okay? You don't look well." "No, I'm fine. Sorry about that." Miss Williams looked puzzled, as if she had no idea what was troubling me. How could she be so composed? Was that night's event not special to her? It's ridiculous that I'm the only one overly conscious about it. Afterward, Miss Williams began visiting the hotel regularly as part of her studies. Chef Anderson seemed quite taken with her, addressing her as Miss Williams and sticking close by her side. The good-looking Chef Anderson and the beautiful Miss Williams made quite a pair. Whispers around suggested they were well matched, and some even envied a potential match of beauty and success. Indeed, every time Miss Williams visited, she and Chef Anderson appeared to get along well, engaging in lively conversations. Apparently, there were plans for the hotel group to launch a new restaurant soon, and the menu was to be supervised by Miss Williams and Chef Anderson. Miss Williams was also expected to work at our hotel eventually. Being entrusted with such a significant task as her first job indicated high expectations. Those two, a chef and a rising star, honestly seemed like a perfect match to everyone else. Chef Anderson had a two-faced nature. However, with Miss Williams, he might continue to be kind. The two, celebrated by everyone, left me feeling like an outsider. Of course, that's only natural. The daughter of the owner and just a sous chef like me. Moreover, I'm planning to leave this job soon and will be unemployed. One day, I saw Miss Williams in the break room, a warm towel over her eyes. Miss Williams, are you okay? Is that you, Ethan? Yes, I'm fine. Just a bit of eye strain. Scattered on the table were notebooks, pamphlets, and a notepad. She seemed to be busy moving around, conducting field research, brainstorming new menu ideas, and studying various aspects of hotel management. That's good. Please take it easy and rest when you can. After offering words of encouragement, an idea struck me. The first time I cooked for Miss Williams at the resort, she was so delighted. Maybe if I made something for her now, while she's tired, it could help ease her fatigue. With a sense of urgency to do good, I decided to prepare the same taro dish that I had served her that day, along with the usual staff meals. Back then, I used locally grown or arnett yams for the traditional dish. The garnet yams we get at the hotel is different in texture and sweetness, so I adjusted the seasoning to make it as similar as possible. I placed the dish on a tray and headed towards the break room where Miss Williams was. I hoped she would be pleased. No, she would be. She had praised it so much before. I was sure she would light up again. This might be the last dish I make here at the hotel. As I was about to knock on the door with these thoughts, Chef Anderson tapped me on the shoulder. Hey, where are you going with that? Chef Anderson. I was just bringing a snack for Miss Williams. It was clear that Chef Anderson had a fondness for Miss Williams, and I hesitated, fearing a misunderstanding. A snack? You think your cooking will suit Miss Williams' taste? I believe it will be fine. Previously. What? Know your place. Miss Williams is first class. There's no way she would enjoy something made by a fake chef like you. Chef Anderson's hand touched the edge of the tray I was holding, and with a crash, the dish and plates fell to the floor. I was speechless as he smirked at me. Who would want to eat your poor cooking? Get over yourself. You're just an amateur with no skills. Now clean up this mess. That's about all you're good for, trash like you. With that, he walked into the break room where Miss Williams was. I had reached my limit. I loved this job, but working under him was damaging my mental health. I was grateful to the owner and other staff, but I was starting to hate cooking itself. After cleaning up the dish I had made with care, I couldn't focus on my work for the rest of the day. My hand trembled holding the knife, and I couldn't taste anything I cooked. I decided to submit my resignation letter the next day. That night, after the service was over, I was polishing my cooking tools, knowing I wouldn't be using them here again. Lost in thought, Miss Williams entered the kitchen. Ethan, have you thought about any new dishes for next season's menu? Her expectant look was flattering, but it also made me feel guilty. No, actually, I've decided to leave this place. Leave? Yes. So I haven't thought about the menu. Suddenly, she grabbed my arm. Miss Williams gripped my arm with unexpected strength. Let's go for a drink. What? Just come. There's something I want to talk about. Confused by her sudden invitation, I followed along, ending up in a stylish, private bar that seemed popular with women. Facing each other, I didn't know why she had brought me here or what to say. As I sat in silence, our ordered beers arrived. Miss Williams forcefully handed me a glass and clanked it against mine for a toast. You haven't been as casual with me as you were when we first met. Her slightly pouting expression caught me off guard. It was natural. After what had happened, I couldn't act the same around her. I didn't know how she felt, but at least for me. Is it because I'm the owner's daughter? I couldn't respond immediately. Chef Anderson's words about knowing my place echoed in my mind. I've always loved cooking. I wanted to work in a hotel like my father, but everywhere I went, it was always about my father's name, Mr. Williams' daughter, and that frustrated me. I wanted to be recognized for who I am, not through my father. So, to prove myself, I polished my skills and knowledge, and I was proud of my abilities. But something was missing. That's when I encountered your cooking. Then, Miss Williams opened up about her feelings one after another. She admitted to being complacent with her cooking but realized she still had a lot to learn. She talked about how enjoyable it was to discuss cooking with me, and how she felt it was fate that the person who made such an impactful dish was working at her father's hotel. She was happy to have someone who treated her, not just as the hotel owner's daughter, but as an individual. I didn't mention my father when we first met because I didn't want you to change your behavior towards me. I wanted to be treated as just Savannah Williams. I'm sorry I kept it from you. There's nothing to apologize for. I don't want to lose you. Her tone was firm, her gaze direct. Her cheeks were flushed, not from drunkenness or shyness, but with earnestness. I want to work with you. Did you know a new restaurant is being launched under our hotel brand? Jer, I've heard some rumors. Then, please work with me at the new restaurant. I was taken aback, wide-eyed and speechless for a moment. What? I originally wanted to work in a hotel, but after tasting your cooking, my thoughts changed. I want to provide first-class cuisine. First class isn't just about being delicious. It's about creativity and catering to the diner's needs. If I work with someone like you, Ethan, who constantly strives to improve without arrogance, it doesn't matter whether it's a hotel or a restaurant. Me. But why me? Ethan, you've been treated horribly by Chef Anderson, haven't you? Ah, yes. Did you know? Yes. He hides it in front of me, but it's obvious. You've barely been cooking. I've tried to stop him before, but it only made things worse for you. I'm sorry. No, it's not your fault, Miss Williams. Thank you for saying something. I don't think you should be buried here. That's why I want you to join me in running the restaurant. It'll be almost like being independent. I appreciate it, but what about Chef Anderson? I heard you two were working on various projects together. Chef Anderson, frankly, it's not working out. Our tastes and styles don't align. He seems to be clinging to me, likely to curry favor with the owner's daughter. I had no idea she felt that way. If you're bothered by him, I should have stepped in more. I haven't been paying enough attention. I aspire to further master the culinary art, to exceed you, Ethan, and to create dishes that bring joy to all. For this, I seek your guidance. I had never been so directly and earnestly asked for my help before. Toby wanted not just for my cooking, but for my presence beside her. You really think highly of me, Miss Williams. Where do you see that? I pride myself on having an excellent eye for talent, Miss Williams said confidently. Her self-assurance made me want to be more assertive myself, to stand beside her as someone worthy, with dignity. All right, I understand. Please count on me. Half a month later, I left the hotel to start working on the new restaurant. When Chef Anderson heard about my involvement, he confronted the owner and Miss Williams, asking why they chose me. Miss Williams replied sharply, "Someone who wastes food doesn't deserve to be a chef." She had witnessed Chef Anderson ruining my dish. She informed the owner, who then deemed Chef Anderson unsuitable as both a chef and a staff member of the hotel. Initially skeptical, the owner eventually realized Chef Anderson's true nature after hearing from other kitchen staff about his behavior towards me. Confronted by the owner, Chef Anderson exclaimed, "It's his fault. Ethan is attempting to overshadow me despite his lower position. It's only fair to assert my authority over him." Subsequently, Chef Anderson was fired for not fitting the hotel standards. This story became well known in the industry, and he struggled to find employment elsewhere. Desperate, he opened his own restaurant, but it soon failed due to poor patronage. The owner shared this story with me and added, "Your restaurant is a whole different story. The restaurant Miss Williams and I opened was a hit, bustling every day. We used local ingredients to create affordable dishes without compromising on taste. Our creative cuisine, meticulously crafted to please the palate, attracted endless media attention and social media coverage. It was a grand and successful opening, but we knew we couldn't rest on our laurels. It's thanks to the hotel group's name and Ms. Williams' efforts we can become complacent. We must keep striving." A week after our grand opening, we celebrated our success with a party. Seeing Miss Williams happily drinking, I became a little worried, remembering the mistake we made when we first met. "Enjoy yourself, but please be careful not to drink too much." "I'm fine. I'm not a lightweight. But you know, because of that night." Saying this, I showed her the note from that time. Miss Williams looked surprised. "Why do you still have this?" I wanted to clear things up about that night. That night. You know, when we spent the night together. What? Miss Williams looked puzzled, and then burst out laughing. Ethan, have you misunderstood something? Misunderstood? I'm sorry. The heart marks I added must have made it seem more believable. So, nothing happened. Right. Even when I'm drunk, I remember everything. Then, the "it was wonderful" part. Was that about our conversation on cooking? Yes. I felt a wave of relief. So, nothing had happened after all. What a relief. There was a tinge of disappointment, but at least I understood why I was the only one conscious about it. And it was good that I hadn't made a move on someone I wasn't in a relationship with. Well, it would have been okay if something had happened. Miss Williams smiled beside me, making me blush. Apparently, she had taken a liking to me from the start and, in her drunkenness, had leaned on me and made physical contact. However, I had gently rebuked her, telling her to value herself more, which she found endearing and made her like me even more. To me, it felt a bit cowardly. Now that we had expressed our feelings for each other, we agreed to take our relationship slowly, which was reassuring. Moving forward, I aim to nurture not only our restaurant and culinary skills, but also our relationship, alongside my beloved partner. We both understood the reliability of hard work. That's why we decided to take steady and hurried steps, together with the woman I love, hand in hand. You're fired for letting that filthy homeless person into the store. This place has been dirtied. Your presence only pollutes the air more. Just go home, right now, immediately. I was kicked out by the manager without a chance to explain myself, outside a high-end brand store on the streets of Fifth Avenue in New York. I was fired from the job I had worked so hard at. Check this out. Look at the news. The next day, when I went to complete my resignation procedures, the TV in the back room was showing the scruffy old man from yesterday. A shock greater than anything I'd experienced before awaited me. As I went from Fifth Avenue to my mother's suburban apartment, a stranger greeted me with a smile. Hey there, son. My name is Michael Johnson. I'm 27 years old. I work as a salesperson at the Fifth Avenue boutique of George Ray, a high-fashion brand known worldwide. Up until 3 months ago, I was working in the e-commerce department of this luxury fashion brand, but after a minor dispute, I was reassigned, leaving me in a difficult spot. Ever since I joined the company as a fresh graduate, my ambition had always been to work in the e-commerce division. The benefits of selling clothes online are tremendous. I've always felt that there are only advantages to it, long before it became the norm in today's world. Growing up, I lived in various small towns across the country with my mom. I was a kid who had no interest in toys or cartoons, but for some reason, I had a strange fixation on fashion. I like clothes with a bit of an accent, something distinctive. But in those days, in the rural town, although magazines were available, the clothes featured in them could nowhere be found in the local stores. It wasn't until I was in middle school that I finally could buy some clothes online. I saved up my little allowance, and I still keep the first stylish t-shirt I bought in my closet, treasuring it. Even in the countryside, e-commerce sites that sold real clothes from magazines were a godsend. I believe I received a job offer at this competitive company because I passionately discussed those days during my job interview, despite not being particularly outstanding. That's the only reason I can think of. Everyone at this brand seems to have some sort of standout background, lived abroad, parents are designers, or they themselves look like models. You know, the upper echelons of society. There's nobody who has spent childhood in a sleepy small town like me. That's no surprise since our brand emphasizes a fashionable, high society vibe, and employees are expected to dress smartly. Even working behind the scenes in the e-commerce department, I made sure to dress well and use accessories creatively when going to the office. I love fashion, but it's tough on my wallet since I don't earn much. In addition to buying clothes, I've also overextended myself in choosing where to live, as a reaction to my past. Michael, you're a grown-up with a job now. You can do as you please. But I'm going to enjoy my freedom. I've got my own skills, my mom would say. I brought my mom to the big city, New York, when I got a job, intending to do something kind for her. I wanted to be nearby to help her if anything happened. But my mom, she lives in an affordable apartment in the suburbs of New York, not in the same district as me. She's always been the type to prioritize budgeting practicality above all. According to her, my dad left home before I was old enough to remember, and while they haven't officially split up, there's been no contact, so she just lets it be. I've never seen my father's face, but I have this sense that he's out there somewhere. He occasionally sends money on a whim, but it's always sporadic. My mom went back to nursing school at an older age, got her degree, and then worked at clinics in remote locations, raising me on her own. She chose these remote places because she never officially divorced my dad but hated him at her core and didn't want him to find her. She told me this after we moved to New York. It wasn't because of violence or emotional abuse. It was just his irresponsibility and extreme optimism that started to grate on her after I was born. Even though I don't know my father, I can feel that such a light-hearted person wouldn't have meshed well with my pragmatic mom. Michael, sometimes you remind me a bit of your father. My mom would occasionally grumble, reminding me to be more self-disciplined. I think that's a pretty good mother-son relationship, although I have no idea in what ways I resemble him. Since becoming a salesperson at the boutique, I spend more time in front of the mirror before work than ever. I have to think about not just what to wear to work, but also during work. I must wear at least one piece from our brand in front of the customers. And it can't be the same outfit every day, which means a lot of outfit planning, even for someone who loves clothes. Plus, I'm not that tall, so many items don't fit the brand's image on me. Actually, finding items that do suit me is quite the challenge. Sigh, I wish I could go back to the e-commerce department. I can't help but mutter pathetically. But the chance of me returning to my previous department is almost impossible. I had a conflict with the head of the e-commerce department. It was 4 months ago, around the time when people's attire shifted from autumn to winter. The head of the e-commerce department, Thomas Anderson, made a bold statement at a general meeting. I'm thinking of automating customer service on our e-commerce site using AI. Everyone except me agreed with this statement. Sir, with all due respect, I think this will make it difficult to address individual customer needs. The quality of service might decline. Then, the employees who agreed with the proposal gave me looks of annoyance. Our e-commerce department was unpopular within the company, populated by individuals who reluctantly worked there due to their inability to join more glamorous departments. So, led by the manager, everyone was mostly thinking about how to work less. I, who prioritized sales and customer satisfaction, always felt somewhat out of place. Appreciate your perspective, Mr. Johnson. However, given the current downturn in the apparel industry, implementing AI can reduce labor costs. Relying solely on human interaction for non-in-store customers isn't efficient. Shouldn't we adopt technology suitable for the times? I showed the manager and others data about customers who like our brand but can't visit the store, illustrating how careful customer service increased our repeat business. However, the managers didn't seriously look at the data or listen to the explanation, continually advocating for AI implementation and automation with illogical arguments. So, I kept advocating for the importance of human customer service. During these discussions, it became clear that the manager and other employees didn't even understand what AI could do. They seemed to think that implementing it would reduce their workload. That wouldn't lead to cost reduction or efficiency. The meeting ended that day, and from then on, I started being treated as a nuisance in the department. Still, I didn't change my stance. Compiling and distributing documents about the current limitations of AI and printing out customer feedback. My documents were always thrown away unread. Realizing this wasn't working, I decided to take a bold step and speak to the higher-ups. I persistently asked Thomas Anderson to allow me to attend a meeting where managers of all departments and higher positions gathered to make a proposal. The manager consistently refused my requests. Are you just trying to smear mud on my face by doing this? Not at all. I want you, sir, to understand the importance of human service and cooperate. It's not yet time to consider implementing AI. Enough already, really. Instead of needlessly opposing, why don't you just go ahead and work on implementing AI? With neither great education nor good looks, at least be obedient, for heaven's sake. Every day I pleaded with the manager, and every day he berated me. But one day, unusually, Mr. Anderson approached me with a smile. Johnson, your wish might come true. Come to the board meeting tomorrow. Aren't you lucky? At that moment, I felt my persistence had paid off and was moved. But it wasn't to be. Without human service, we can't compete in the industry. The essence of apparel is person-to-person interaction, even for an e-commerce site. Just as I started to passionately argue at the meeting, Mr. Anderson interrupted me and began to speak himself. So, that's the situation. We have a passionate employee in our department. What do you think, Mr. Smith? Does he meet your expectations? I turned to the man called Smith. He was the head of the sales department. As expected from someone interacting with customers in a high-end store, Mr. Smith looked sharp, resembling a senior model, dressed in our company's finest attire from head to toe, wearing all our brand's items. His outfit must have cost thousands. Mr. Smith looked me up and down before saying, "Johnson, was it? Can you do the kind of customer service where you don't actually sell anything?" I didn't understand what he was asking. Customer service in a clothing store, but not selling anything. Our brand is prestigious and cool, with stores as beautiful as castles. However, we occasionally attract customers who don't align with our image. Honestly, we don't want them here, nor do we want them to buy our clothes. It would be best if only high-end customers wore our brand. What? Isn't our company's policy to provide quality clothing to many customers? I checked the reactions of the other executives. Such an elitist approach couldn't possibly be acceptable. But the other executives, just like Mr. Smith, seemed proud of this stance. Suddenly, Mr. Anderson burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha. Johnson, did you truly believe in such idealistic notions? We're not a budget brand. We're selective about our clientele, particularly wary of online shoppers. It's impractical to prioritize catering to low-income individuals seeking internet sales. Our e-commerce site is solely for inventory clearance." I felt so dizzy standing there that I could barely keep myself upright. Sure, our staff are prideful, but the upper management was on a whole different level. A group of people with strong elitist views, believing in serving only a select group of customers. What was the image of the good apparel company I had believed in? A dream, an illusion. Caught in this sense of unreality, all I could do was stand there silently. "We called you to this meeting for an internal interview. You're no longer required in the e-commerce department. If you're interested in customer service, perhaps Mr. Smith from sales could accommodate you. What do you say, Mr. Smith?" While Mr. Anderson casually said something terrible and looked to Mr. Smith for confirmation, I was too shocked to move. "Well, Johnson, your first name is Michael, correct? George Ray and Michael, you're fortunate to have such a strong name. It might have played a role in your hiring. However, our clothes don't complement your appearance. You could serve as an example if you excel in a non-sales service role." Before I could say anything, I was transferred to the sales department. Realizing the trivial true reason I was hired, I felt a sense of despair and could only answer yes to the transfer. At that time, I regret not being stronger, not insisting on staying in the e-commerce department. E-commerce lacked comfort, while in the sales department, especially in a prime retail store, I felt distant and isolated from my colleagues right from the start. It was the worst work environment. The sales staff at this store all looked like celebrities, brimming with confidence that seemed to radiate from within. Such people don't seem to mingle with ordinary folks like me. Mr. Smith, who also serves as the area manager, was one of the reasons I was isolated, as he influenced everyone to act this way. Everyone. Johnson here specializes in non-selling interactions. Teach him the bare minimum, but avoid getting too friendly in a way that customers might misinterpret. That's how Mr. Smith introduced me. The colleagues coldly acknowledged with a yes. I didn't know when I was in e-commerce, but apparently, condescending service was the norm in the store. I always bought our products online, so I was unaware of this aspect. Incredibly, the staff would quickly assess customers' shoes, bags, and accessories to decide how to treat them. On my first day, when a mother and child in non-branded down jackets, sneakers, and a crumpled reusable bag entered, all my colleagues ignored them. "Here's your chance, Johnson," Mr. Smith said, patting my shoulder, and I approached the mother and child. "Welcome. Are you looking for something specific?" Seemingly unused to being addressed, the mother and child flinched at my approach. "Oh, no, just browsing. We were interested in the dress in the front window. That dress is lovely." "I'll show you where it is," I said, about to lead them, but Mr. Smith stepped in front of us. "Excuse me, ma'am. Unfortunately, that item sold out just a moment ago. It seems it wasn't meant to be for you. Please do visit us again." I was stunned, thinking, what? Despite the dress being in stock, the mother and child left the store hurriedly, seeming embarrassed. They might have wanted to see other clothes, right? They said they wanted to browse, I said to Mr. Smith, but I was taken to the back room. Customers like them should be turned away immediately. Reusable bags pose a threat to our brand image. If someone wears our clothes and carries a reusable bag, it's the end of our brand image, right? Say unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. Please visit us again to prevent online complaints. Mr. Smith said this as if teaching a normal job, but it didn't seem normal to me. However, any other type of customer service would get me scolded. So for 3 months, day after day, I reluctantly carried out the task of saying, "Unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. Please visit us again." I couldn't find passion in my work. Even knowing the harsh reality behind the scenes, I couldn't bring myself to leave the brand I had long admired. But a department change seemed impossible, and with mixed feelings, I had no choice but to continue as a salesperson. Reluctantly, I chose my clothes every morning and went to work with a heavy heart. Then one day, while working in my usual discontent, I noticed an old man near the entrance, dressed in a way that seemed out of place in Fifth Avenue. He was wearing tattered, torn clothes, not resembling any brand, and sandals on his bare feet in the cold weather. Allowing this old man inside would surely earn me a reprimand from Mr. Smith. I forced a smile and approached the entrance. As the old man was about to open the door, I pressed the doorknob to stop him. "Hello, are you lost?" I asked him outside the store. "I'm looking for George." "I'm sure is George. This is the place, right?" The old man's hands and face were blackened like those of a homeless person. "Is that so? This is George Ray, but are you sure you're in the right place?" I'm sure I'm not mistaken. It's a secret, but I'm an acquaintance of George," the old man said. Hearing that the old man claimed to know our brand's chief designer, I hesitated. If I turned him away, it could be disrespectful. He was poorly dressed, but his speech was coherent. Taking a risk, I let the old man into the store. My colleague's eyes immediately filled with anger. "Huh? When did our men's line get completely revamped? It's more casual now. Oh, the leather for the belts has changed its country of origin. The models for the ladies' line have gotten taller, too." As the old man walked quickly through the store, commenting at length on each product, I followed him, repeating the explanations for the comments he had already moved past. This old man might have looked unkempt, but he seemed no ordinary person. 20 minutes later, as if to stop the old man's progress, Mr. Smith appeared. "Sir, what are you looking for? Please allow me to assist you. Don't bother finding it yourself. What can I do for you?" To Mr. Smith's words, the old man replied nonchalantly, "No, I can't buy anything. I don't have any money." Mr. Smith gently apologized for the lack of connection and ushered the old man out of the store. As the old man waved goodbye and left, Mr. Smith turned to me with a fixed smile but spoke in a stern tone. "You're fired for letting that filthy homeless person into the store. This place has been dirtied. Your presence only pollutes the air more. Just go home, right now, immediately." I was kicked out without a chance to explain, as my colleagues from the back room handed me all my personal belongings and escorted me out of the store. Standing in the middle of the bustling Fifth Avenue, I looked up at the dry, cold sky in a daze. After a night passed, a bit of calmness returned. I had been fired, but the formalities were still necessary. I dressed in a carefully coordinated outfit as usual and headed to the company. Entering through the back door of the store, I immediately ran into Mr. Smith. Despite his intimidating look telling me to leave, I managed to ask him to formalize the firing procedure. "I'm just not in the mood. I don't have the energy for such troublesome matters." "You get that right. Even so, the dismissal procedure can't proceed without the manager's involvement." While we were arguing, suddenly a female colleague's scream came from the back room. "Look at this." Everyone, watch the news. Both Mr. Smith and I, startled by her voice, turned to look at the television screen. Paris-originated global brand David K. has announced the firing of its chief designer, Mr. David Johnson, due to his disappearance. However, Mr. Johnson was reportedly seen yesterday on Fifth Avenue. The short video clip shown with the viewer's submission featured the homeless-looking old man from yesterday. David K. is a high-end brand similar to ours in consumer demographics. Mr. Smith, with a smirk, said, "Ha, the downfall of David K., a chief designer turned homeless person. Ha ha, it's uplifting news. Johnson, you're fortunate. Given this amusing development, I'll handle your dismissal procedure properly. So, once again, goodbye." As I walked home through the crowded streets of Fifth Avenue, I thought about the identity of the old man. It made sense that he had such deep knowledge of design if he was a designer. While I was lost in thought, my phone rang. It was an email from my mom, asking me to come over to her apartment tonight. I decided to head there directly. To my astonishment, the guest at her place was that old man. "Hey there, son," the old man cheerfully called me his son while raising his hand. My mom sipped her tea with a resigned look. I was speechless, comparing the two, battling the confusion in my head. About an hour later, I almost finished listening to my mother and the old man and managed to grasp the situation. This old man, or rather, David Johnson, was indeed my real father. Yesterday, his attire made him look older, but now, dressed neatly, he appeared to be in his 60s. Right after I was born, my father left my mother and me to fly to Paris. Originally training as a designer, he met my mother, who was then a department store clothing salesperson, and they married soon after, with me arriving the following year. Then he left for Paris. My father claimed my birth ignited his desire to be a great father, but my mother saw it as him chasing his own dreams irresponsibly, I learned. My father, David Johnson, achieved great success in Paris, establishing his own brand and quickly becoming famous. Throughout all these years, until yesterday, he never once returned to see my mother and me. Why did he suddenly come back? The reason was selfish. I lost everything. In the end, family is the only thing you can rely on, he admitted. Just as my mother had always told me, he was a self-centered and irresponsible father. From the beginning, David had conflicts with the management of his brand. Although his brand, David K., focused on luxury and high quality, he actually preferred a more casual style. Somehow, his casually designed clothes would end up being transformed into luxury items. It's strange, my clothes sell differently than how I imagined them. I was grateful to those who wore my designs, so I thought it was fine, he reflected. For decades, he compromised with the management he disagreed with. But last year, they decided to turn the brand into a snobbish label that selectively chooses its customers. I couldn't stand the idea of sellers choosing their buyers. That would mean people who like my designs couldn't afford them. As I kept opposing this, I was fired from my own brand. Ridiculous, right? The reason for his dismissal announced by David K. yesterday was, in fact, different. My father, David Johnson, had been fired 6 months ago and had been wandering aimlessly since then. He finally remembered my mother and me and returned, but had no means of finding us. Eventually, he ran out of money and ended up living like a homeless person. He befriended an informative homeless man and helped him for 3 days, finally getting information about my mother's apartment and the store where I worked. I finally understood that the George my father was looking for yesterday referred to George Ray. The tumultuous story of my father's life was too much for an ordinary person like me to take in all at once. However, I found myself respecting his belief that brands should not choose their customers. And what now? What are you planning to do after finding me and Michael? Surely, you don't think we're going to live together? I absolutely refuse, my mother interjected. I was coming around to forgiving my father, but my mother still wanted to reject him. Even though we're family. That's cold. I've got nowhere else to go. Do you think you have the right to say that after leaving us and not making any contact? My mother retorted. As I listened to their argument, I remembered that I was unemployed. I couldn't even offer to let my father stay in my apartment long term. What should I do? Knowing I was interrupting, I cut into their conversation. Mom, sorry, but can I also stay here for a while? I got fired yesterday. My mother's mouth fell open. She stopped talking, and the next moment, she burst into tears. You guys are so irresponsible. I can't take this anymore. My father and I awkwardly scratched our heads. I had not lived my life intending to be irresponsible, but from my mother's perspective, I suppose that's how it seemed. Maybe Dad and I are similar in some way. Dad, for tonight, come stay at my apartment. Oh, all right, thank you. It felt odd to suddenly call a man I had known as a stranger until yesterday Dad and share a meal with him, but the lack of discomfort might just prove our blood relation. A week after inviting him to my place, we spent a lot of time discussing how we could live without making my mother cry. Dad, first, I think I need to find a new job. Son, me too. Also, Dad, I want to work in apparel again. Son, me too. We started to think maybe we could work together, building a new brand with Dad and selling the clothes on an e-commerce site. We didn't have the funds for a physical store, so we thought of using someplace cheap and spacious as our base. We visited my mother's apartment again, and both of us knelt down. Please let us use your apartment as our workspace. I'm begging you, it's the only place I could think of. This time, my mother didn't cry. Instead, she made Dad write a declaration. If he was going to live here, he couldn't just leave for another place on a whim. Don't take living together as a family lightly. If you decide to live together, it's unacceptable to just disappear on your own. If you're ready to understand the anger and sadness of those left behind, then I'll talk to the landlord about letting you use the prefab in the back of the garden. The bigger the space, the better, right? Dad responded with a loud yes, ma'am. Humph. Well, even if your business doesn't work out, I can support you if you're going to stay here. I realized that my mother didn't want Dad to leave her again, and I couldn't help but feel teary. Thus, we started our first unexpected family life together. Dad was still eccentric and unreasonable in many ways, causing minor conflicts, but somehow we managed to live together amicably. Dad and I decided on a casual version of haute couture for our new brand concept. The brand name was David and George M. It was a fusion of Dad's original desire to create casual clothing for many people, and my wish to cater to each customer's individual needs. Haute and haute couture means high-end in French, so it might seem like a contradictory concept at first, but it really wasn't. Seeing Dad's craftsmanship for the first time, I couldn't help but admire his talent, despite being my parent. His ideas for designs were endless, and there was no waste in his choice of materials, his efficiency, or the time he spent. Even within the range of casual wear, he could create the finest garments at the set prices, enabling us to offer casual yet luxurious clothing. As half a year, then a year passed, our brand quietly became famous, thanks to Dad's reputation and word of mouth. I worked hard to connect Dad's clothes with the customers' requests. No matter how unreasonable the demands were, I addressed them seriously and aimed to satisfy the customers. The reputation spread, and opportunities for magazine interviews and providing clothes for advertisements increased. By this time, my mother's apartment had become too cramped. I also felt the need for a larger space and new employees. Just then, we were looking for a solution to this situation. News came that both George Ray, my former workplace, and David K., my father's former workplace, had faced their worst ever performance declines. Both Dad and I naturally felt worried about the struggles of our former employers. David K. began to frequently reach out to Dad with flattering words, asking him to return. Every time such a message arrived, Dad's shoulders would slump in sadness. Yet, he never replied with a decision to go back to Paris. I guessed he wanted to keep his promise to my mother. However, my mother seemed to feel sorry for Dad, who lost a bit of his spirit with each message from Paris. Why don't you go back for a bit and then return here? She knew that if Dad left, he might never return, but still, she gave him that permission. On a clear early summer afternoon, Dad boarded a plane to Paris. My mother and I looked up at the sky, watching several planes fly by in the suburbs. He bought a round-trip ticket, but in reality, it's just a one-way ticket. I couldn't agree or disagree with my mother's calm words. I wanted to work with Dad, but couldn't decide if it was for the best. With Dad gone, David and George M. stopped taking orders. My mother's apartment became suddenly quiet, and I started a part-time job at a local clothing store. Resigned to Dad not returning, we, mother and son, lived an ordinary life. It was business as usual. With a somewhat hollow heart, I went through life routinely as autumn arrived. Every morning, I made it a habit to gaze at the vast sky beyond the colorful trees in the yard. It was the same yard where Dad's boisterous voice used to echo early in the mornings, urging me to wake up quickly, to hurry up with the orders. Hey, Dad's always in such a rush. I remembered those nostalgic conversations with a smile. Hey, hurry up and take the orders. Hey, stop gawking at the sky. Wait, what? I turned around, towards the sound of my father's living voice. I couldn't believe it. Dad had returned. What? No way. Why did you come back? Paris-originated global brand David K. has announced the firing of its chief designer, Mr. David Johnson, due to his disappearance. However, Mr. Johnson was reportedly seen yesterday on Fifth Avenue. 3 foreigners alighted from the car behind Dad and entered the yard. Nice to meet you, Michael. These guys are joining David and George M. from today. I brought back only geniuses. As Dad introduced them with a beaming smile, Mom, appearing from somewhere, interjected. You. Just a little while you said, but you took too long. So irresponsible. Mom was crying, hiding her face, but she seemed happy, tears of joy. Dad had gone to Paris to negotiate. He went to collect compensation for his wrongful termination from David K. and to poach promising employees from a company on the brink of bankruptcy. He had always intended to return. I made a lifelong promise to Mom. A contract is absolute. I remembered that David K. was the one who broke the contract with me. We, along with the new employees, moved to a larger property in the suburbs. David and George M. started anew in a spacious house. While our new brand was flourishing, both David K. and George Ray collapsed under enormous debts and had to shut down. David and George M. seemed set for further expansion. We would probably need to enlarge our workspace and facilities again soon. No matter where we moved, we would stay together. It was a family community we discovered late, but because of that, we wanted to cherish it deeply and for a long time to come. My husband's a director at a well-known company. It's something you, a high school graduate, could never achieve in your lifetime. During a reception at a fancy restaurant, I unexpectedly ran into a classmate who insulted me for being out of place in such an establishment and suddenly started boasting about her husband. She, being ignorant of who I really am, repeatedly mocked me, calling me a loser or a failure. Well then, I guess he's getting fired tomorrow. What? As I was running out of patience, I turned to her and said this. I ignored her and left the place, while she stood in bewilderment. Consequently, she fell from grace, ending up in a tragic state. My name is Michael Anderson, 46 years old. I run an apparel company. I took over the company at 35, succeeding the previous president, and became the CEO. Introduced by an acquaintance, I started working at my current job right after graduating high school, and my hard work was recognized by the president. Even now, I work hard every day with my employees for the company's growth. At 25, the president introduced me to a woman whom he considered a perfect match for me, and I married this woman, Emily, who was an employee at the same company and 3 years younger than me. We were blessed with a child soon after marriage, and now I'm the father of a daughter who's a university student. Emily resigned from her job when she found out she was pregnant and became a full-time homemaker, focusing on housework and childcare. When I became the CEO, she returned to work as my secretary. Now, with Emily's help, I'm working hard as the CEO. I was living a busy yet fulfilling life, but a certain event would soon lead me to face a major dilemma. I was raised by my single mom. My mom managed to send me to high school, but pursuing college was out of reach due to financial issues, so I decided to work instead. In my sophomore year of high school, my mom fell and was hospitalized. So, early in the morning, I worked on newspaper delivery. Additionally, I worked at a restaurant and a bar to earn a living. However, I couldn't afford to go on the school trip, no matter how hard I worked. Hearing this, my classmate, Sarah Johnson, started mocking me. I heard you can't even manage to afford the school trip. Isn't that just typical of a poor single-parent family like yours? Your mom's a total failure, unable to even shell out a few $100. Her words led her friends to join in, making me the butt of their jokes. I was furious about them mocking my mom but realized arguing was pointless. I just endured in silence. Sarah was beautiful and seemed to be the daughter of a company's president, a central figure in our class. Most of the class followed her lead, so I was ridiculed by almost everyone. But even so, there was one person I could call a true friend. Sam Jackson. Sam, who talked to me when I was alone in class and even showed concern for my mom's health, was a great guy. We became friends in our sophomore year and still go out for drinks as adults. Incidentally, I got my current job at the company, thanks to an introduction from Sam. If you're a friend of Sam's, you are more than welcome. Thanks to Sam, I owe a lot to where I am today. I truly can't thank him enough. One day, as I was thinking about inviting Sam for a drink, Emily, holding her smartphone, came from the adjacent secretarial office into my CEO office. "Sorry, can I leave early today?" Thinking she might be feeling unwell, I asked what was wrong. "It's not me, it's Lena. She's having trouble again. She says she's too scared to move," Emily said, looking worried. I immediately told her to go and saw her off. Even after Emily left, I couldn't settle down. The truth is, I've been troubled by something for about a week now. It's about my daughter Lena's stalker. About a month ago, while the three of us were having dinner without Lena, she came home from her part-time job, her hair disheveled and face tear-streaked. When I asked what happened, she said in a small voice, "A customer tried to force me into his car." Naturally, Lena had turned him down, but he persisted. Eventually, he waited for her until she finished her duty at the restaurant, attempting to coax her into his car. Moreover, he was a man in his 50s, older than me. Naturally, Lena had turned him down, but he persisted. Eventually, he waited for her until she finished her duty at the restaurant, attempting to coax her into his car. Hearing this, both my wife and I were horrified. We immediately made her quit her job and started picking her up from university. However, that didn't put an end to it. The stalking continued, and he started showing up at her university and places where she went with friends. Feeling that I couldn't let this man go unpunished, I discussed the situation with Lena and reported it to the police. However, they informed us that they couldn't take any action since no actual harm had been done. "All right then, I'll handle it myself." However, the man seemed to be very cautious and never showed up when I was watching. In short, it ended up being a waste of time. I could pick up Lena whenever she asked, but beyond that, there was nothing else I could do for her. As a parent, I felt utterly helpless. One day, while pondering what to do, the stalker approached Lena again. Lena managed to escape quickly, but out of fear, she shut herself in her room. "I'm just so scared." Hearing her anguished voice, both Emily and I felt frustrated at our inability to do anything. Realizing that this couldn't continue, I asked Sam a favor for Lena's sake. After work, I immediately called Sam to a cafe near the office. "What's the rush? You know, I'm pretty busy too, though maybe not as much as you. I know that, but you're the only one I can ask." I explained to Sam that Lena was frightened by the stalker and the police were of no help. "You're my last hope, Sam. Can you please find out who this stalker is?" I pleaded with Sam. After graduating from college, Sam had set up his PI agency. Hoping that a professional could uncover the stalker's identity, I turned to Sam. Initially joking, Sam's expression changed when he heard about Lena's situation. "If it's for Lena, I've got to do it. Leave it to me, I'll find out everything as quickly as possible." Relieved by Sam's reassuring words, I explained to him about Lena's university and the nearest station. Just then, a familiar voice said, "Isn't that Sam and the poor guy?" Turning around, there stood my classmate, Sarah Johnson. Though she had aged, her beauty was unmistakable, so I recognized her instantly, but pretended not to and said, "Miss Johnson. Hey, don't call me by my maiden name. I'm now Sarah Pendragon. It's an uncommon family name, isn't it?" "Pendragon. That's quite uncommon. I think I only know one person with it." As I responded casually, Sarah looked back and forth between me and Sam and sneered, "You two still make such a blend duo. You'd fit better in a diner than this stylish cafe. It's out of place for you. Why don't you move to another shop?" She mocked us. Even after so many years, her fundamental character hadn't changed, I thought. "We're having an important conversation. If you have no business with us, could you please leave?" Sam glared sharply at Sarah, who turned red with anger and left, returning to a young man who seemed to be her companion. After that, Sam and I discussed Lena's situation in detail before leaving the cafe. A week later, Sam told me he had something to discuss, so we met again at the cafe. I want you to look at this. The moment I saw the document Sam handed me, I was so shocked my eyes nearly popped out. Can't believe such a coincidence. I was surprised too. Not just me, but Sam seemed surprised as well. But with this much evidence, we can act. Let's get moving. Just as I was about to say something, Sam said, "Can you give me just 2 or 3 more days?" He wanted me to wait before taking action. Thinking of Lena, I honestly wanted to end this as soon as possible. Even now, Lena is struggling to leave the house, and I've been forcing her to go to university just to catch the perpetrator. But there might be a reason why Sam is asking this. With that thought, I reluctantly nodded in agreement. The next day, after learning the shocking truth, I went to a high-end restaurant for a business dinner. As I stood up to go to the restroom, there she was again, Sarah Johnson, exclaiming, "What is a pool guy like you in a place like this?" Even more out of place than at the cafe. While thinking how unlucky I was to run into her, I told her I was here for work, to which she replied, "For work? That's a lie. There's no way a high school grad from the bottom can have a decent job. You must be working in some insignificant factory, right?" She mocked me without even knowing my job, just making assumptions. Actually, I happened to be a CEO. I was so angry that I retorted back at her. A high school grad as a CEO? Impossible. Even if it's true, it must be some tiny company with 1 or 2 employees. That's not a real company. Still, Sarah didn't stop mocking me. Growing increasingly annoyed, I was about to dismiss her when she suddenly started boasting. "My husband is a director at a well-known company. That's something you, a high school graduate, could never achieve in your lifetime." She proudly spoke of her husband, a sales director at a well-known apparel brand. Why? Then, comparing her husband to me, she kept calling me a loser and a failure, continuously mocking me. I was running out of patience. "Well then, I guess he's getting fired tomorrow." What? After saying that, I left a bewildered Sarah Johnson behind and walked away. After finishing the dinner successfully, I returned home. I arrived home before 9 o'clock, but the kids had already gone to their rooms, leaving only Emily in the living room. "Welcome back. You must be tired after being out so late. Did the dinner go well?" Emily's caring words prompted me to ask about Lena. Her face clouded over in an instant. "It seems it didn't work out. She cried today, wanting to quit university." "I see. Don't worry. Her agony will all end tomorrow." My words made Emily look puzzled. I then told her, actually, and proceeded to share my plan with her. I hadn't told Emily about consulting Sam about Lena, so she was surprised. "I was wondering why you, usually so kind, were forcing Lena to go to school. But now I understand. I wish you had told me. I could have helped." Relieved to hear my plan, Emily agreed. I hadn't disclosed it to her until now as I wanted to keep things confidential. "Actually, I have a favor to ask you, Emily." As soon as I made the request, Emily agreed without hesitation. "Leave it to me. I have a wide network. I'll arrange everything today." After saying that, she left for the bedroom with her smartphone, and I, preparing for tomorrow, took a bath and rested. The next day, I found myself engrossed in urgent work at the secretarial office. I had a specific purpose for being there. As I made good progress, the CEO's office started getting a bit noisy. "The CEO will be back soon. Please wait a little longer." Just as I heard Emily's voice, but then a man's voice interjected, "No need to worry. I was surprised when you called yesterday. To think the CEO himself has something to discuss with me and my wife." The day before, I had asked Emily to invite the sales director and his wife. I asked Emily, my secretary, to contact them, considering Emily's wide network of contacts. She quickly succeeded in inviting them here today. When Emily left the room to prepare tea, the sales director and his wife were left alone in the CEO's office. Listening in, I heard the wife excitedly speculating it might be about a promotion. Called in as a couple, maybe it's for a vice president position. If he becomes a VP, the retirement package would be something to look forward to. The sales director seemed pleased as well, both unaware of what was about to happen, chatting animatedly. I nearly laughed at their carefree conversation but composed myself and opened the door to the CEO's office. "Mr. CEO, how are you?" "Hello there." Sarah, who had stood up following her husband, froze the moment she saw my face. She must have never imagined the classmate she ridiculed for being a high school graduate would turn out to be her husband's boss. As Sarah's mouth opened and closed wordlessly, I said, "Nice to see you again since yesterday." The unsuspecting sales director then asked her if she knew me. "Know him? Well, stammering, Sarah struggled to answer. "We're high school classmates," I interjected, and the sales director's face brightened. "But I must say, my memories with her are nothing but unpleasant." My sarcastic remark instantly turned the atmosphere in the room icy, and it felt like hell until Emily returned with the tea. After being mocked by her wife the other day, I declared that I would fire your husband, so I called you in today. Reacting quickly to my words, the sales director began to scold Sarah. "Did you really say that? And to mock the CEO? What were you thinking?" "But I didn't expect a high school graduate to be a CEO," Sarah tried to justify. Even when the sales director told her to apologize, she showed no sign of doing so. "I deeply apologize for my wife's grave disrespect, but to be fired over just this incident. Could you please reconsider this time?" Desperate to keep his position, the sales director repeatedly apologized, but Sarah seemed indifferent to his apologies. "It appears your wife is not at all remorseful." Pointing this out to the sales director, Sarah retorted angrily, "Why should a high school dropout like you be a CEO? It's your fault for not saying it. And firing over something like this is wrongful dismissal." The sales director hurriedly tried to silence her, but it was too late. I decided to explain to Sarah how I became the CEO. "I joined this Y company right after graduating high school, and I'm the CEO where Sarah's husband is the sales director. Moreover, my best friend, Sam, is the nephew of Y's former president, and their fathers are brothers. Initially, I was hired because I was the friend of the president's nephew. Later, at the age of 30, I took over the company from the former president and became the CEO. There were doubts about whether I could lead 9,000 employees, but the sense of responsibility was greater. After 5 years of training, I took the CEO position. That's how I became the CEO. I had no idea about such a background, but to be fired for something like this." Although Sarah's face turned pale, she still didn't utter a word of apology. "It's not just for this reason that you're being fired. I'll explain the proper reasons now." After saying that, I called out to Emily to bring in a certain person from the secretarial office. As Emily signaled, Sam burst into the CEO's office with great energy. Sarah was even more surprised at Sam's entrance, and the sales director, Mr. Pendragon, looked confused. "Mr. Pendragon, you're fully aware of what's going on?" I asked, but he just shook his head. When I glanced at Sam, he placed several documents and a photo on the table. The moment Mr. Pendragon saw the photo, his face turned deathly pale. Only Sarah, sitting beside him, seemed unable to figure out the conversation. "Actually, this girl is my daughter. She's been a victim of stalking for a while, and I hired my pie friend to investigate." "You're the stalker, aren't you?" I sharply eyed Mr. Pendragon, who started trembling and nodded slightly. "You? That's a lie, right? Maybe she misled you or something." Sarah, in disbelief, accused Lena as if she's at fault. Due to my extreme anger, I was about to lose control and utter inappropriate words. Instead, I let Sam explain the investigation results. When Sam handed me the final report, I recognized the stalker as our employee. Of course, I can recognize someone in the position of the director in the company. What I know about him is that he is a diligent and serious man at the office. That's why the report was very shocking. After Sam finished explaining to Sarah, I addressed Mr. Pendragon. "Now, your dismissal is final and executory due to valid reasons. It's not just the matter involves my daughter. The company cannot employ anyone who engages in such an immoral act. Do you understand, Mr. Pendragon?" Without a word to say back, Mr. Pendragon just nodded quietly. "Of course, this matter with my daughter is a serious crime. Appropriate actions will be taken, so please understand." Thinking the incident would be reported to the police, he pleaded, "Please, anything but that." But recalling Lena's tear-streaked face, I retorted emotionally, "Do you have any idea of the depth of fear you have brought to my daughter? If you have even the slightest understanding, accept your punishment." At this time, Mr. Pendragon hung his head in defeat. I thought it was all over, but then Sarah suddenly said to her husband, "I'm divorcing a stalker like you. Get out of here right now." Just as she said this, Sarah approached me with a sly smile. "I'm sorry about everything before, but in return, I'll be your wife. Aren't you happy to have a beautiful woman like me?" Incredibly, she started making advances toward me, right in front of her husband. Disgusted by Sarah's behavior, I informed her that I was already married with children. Unfazed, she began to talk nonsensically about being a second wife. As I wondered what to do, Sam suddenly burst out laughing. "What's so funny? Do you have a problem?" Sarah snapped at Sam. "You can't be talking about a second wife in front of his legal wife, right? If he cheats on her and gets divorced, he'll lose his position as CEO," Sam joked. At this, Sarah exclaimed in surprise, "What? Indeed. My wife Emily is the daughter of the former president. When I was 25, he suddenly suggested, 'Michael, if you don't have anyone in mind, would you like to meet my daughter?' I initially declined because I had no confidence in myself, though he insisted. However, we hit it off instantly, leading to a quick courtship and marriage. Thus, Emily is the president's daughter, making her and Sam cousins." Realizing this, Sarah turned pale, muttering, "This can't be happening. What should I do? I guess you were hoping to get close to me to pay off the debts you made, right? Too bad." As I sarcastically addressed Sarah, she showed a look of shock. While investigating Lena's stalker, we discovered Sarah was the wife and got a hunch something was off with her too. Sam suggested, "This smells fishy. Give me some time to look into the wife as well." The investigation revealed that Sarah had accumulated debts in the hundreds of thousands of dollars from frequenting high-end bar. Currently, the debts have been paid with her husband's money. She likely turned her attention to me for financial rescue after she divorced. "Hey, debts from a high-end bar. What's that about?" "It's not about that now. The wife and husband started arguing in front of us. Please discuss this at home. Regarding my daughter's case, we'll consult with the professionals and contact you later." Eager to get them out of my office, I opened the door and asked them to leave. However, they just mumbled incoherently, showing no intention of leaving. "If you won't leave, I'll call the police." With my firm statement, they scattered out of the room like startled spiders. Afterward, my lawyer amicably settled Lena's stalking case with the payment of moral damages. However, I made it clear that if any further stalking occurred, we'd go straight to the police, no questions asked. Regarding the Pendragon couple, I heard they ended up divorcing. As for Mr. Pendragon, having been fired, struggled to find decent employment and now juggles several part-time jobs to pay off the living expenses and the settlement debt. Meanwhile, Sarah believed she could rely on her parents after the divorce. But once they learned of the incident, they disowned her, continuing her high-end bar visits. Her debts only grew. Now, she's working in a job that leverages her looks. Considering her age, it's likely going to be difficult for Sarah to lead a decent life from now on. However, as it's the result of her own actions, I do hope she manages to persevere. As for me, I continue to dedicate myself to work as usual. Lena, who had been afraid to go outside, has finally regained her spirits and started attending university with enthusiasm. She also began working part-time at her new store, and it seems she's found her calling. One day, she suddenly declared, "After I graduate from university, I'm going to work at Dad's company." I've never felt so motivated and fulfilled by a job before. The idea of working with my daughter is delightful, but there are still 2 years until she graduates. If Lena still feels the same way then, I think it would be wonderful to work together.